Hi, I'm Debi Peverill, and you're listening to my Coping with COVID-19 checklist, which we updated on April 19th. So, of course, as you know by now, the 2020 pandemic is putting a lot of strain on Canadians, both businesses and employees and everyone else. The federal government has announced a number of programs that have helped. They've extended tax deadlines, they've extended payment deadlines, and of course, all this continues to change. We've got some links on this document so that you can continue to check what's changed, because as soon as I get these things recorded, something's different. So what we have on this checklist is personal income taxes, corporate tax, HST, employers, employees, trusts, charities, and some GST information. So just take a look at the part that applies to you. The big thing around personal income taxes is they're not due on April 30th, which of course is a big surprise to those of us who are accountants who have always looked at April 30th with great amount of dread. Now this year's dread day will be June 1st. So you have until June 1st to file your income tax return. You have until September 1st to pay your bill. So, however, if you're getting a refund, there's no reason to wait. And if you do get the child tax benefit or HST credits, you should get your 2019 tax return filed so that you can get your 2020 benefits. So there's no reason to wait until June 1st to file, particularly since you're home and you get time to put this stuff together. Same thing with income tax installments for personal. The March 15th and June 15th installments don't have to be paid till September 1st. No interest will be charged until after that. Corporate income taxes, any income tax return for a corporation that was due between March 18th and May 31st is now due on June 1st. And payment does not have to be made until September 1st. No interest will be charged. Corporate tax installments for March, April, May, June, July, and August are all due on September 1st. HST registrants, if you are a quarterly filer and you collect, the money you collect from January to March of 2020 is not due till June 30th. If you are a monthly filer, the amount that you've collected in February, March, and April isn't due till June 30th. Annual filers with returns that are due in March, April, or May also have until June 30th to pay. Employers, and here's lots of stuff for employers. There's 2 wage subsidies available. One that's called the TWS, the Temporary Wage Subsidy. It is a 10% subsidy available to pretty much anybody. And there's another subsidy that is 75%, and it only applies to people whose revenue has decreased by 15% or more in March or 30% or more in April or May. And I'm going to talk about each one of those separate. But please note, there is no deferral on filing and paying your source deductions, so you still have to send those in by the 15th of every month. So the temporary wage subsidy first, this is the 10% one. This is available to most employers. Canadian-controlled private corporations, charities, not-for-profits, individuals, and partnerships. This has been passed. It was part of Bill C-13, so the subsidy is available right now. All you have to do is calculate 10% of your gross pay and deduct that amount from your source deductions. So this kicked in for wages that were paid between March 18th and June 19th of 2020. So you know that you collect EI, CPP, and income tax from your employers every month, and you send it to the government by the 15th of the next month. So let's say that you pay your employees every 2 weeks. The payment you made on March 31st is eligible because it was made after March 18th. Your gross pay was $7,000, so 10% of that number is $700. You can deduct the $700 from the income tax number included in your source deductions when you make that payment in April, which you should already have done. So look at the information we have here. If your EI is $400, your CPP was $1,200, and your tax withheld was $1,500, you would owe the government $3,100. You can subtract the $700, being 10% of your wages, from the tax withheld number, and that means that instead of sending them $3,100, you'll send them $2,400. And you'll do the same thing in May and June. So those of you that want the journal entry, you're going to debit your withholding liability account, the one called income taxes payable, for $700, and you're going to credit a new revenue account you've created called temporary wage subsidy. You may not reduce your EI and CPP, only the tax payment. The limit on this is $1,375 per employee and an overall limit of $25,000 per employer. There is a fine print. You need to have a business number and an employer account in order to do this. So if you haven't been you don't have payroll, then you don't need a payroll subsidy. Also, if your taxable capital is over $15 million, you're not going to get it. And if you're a member of an associated group, you're only going to get this subsidy if you were allocated some small business limit in 2019. So that's a simple one. The Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the CEWS, that legislation was now passed on April 11th. It applies to any employer whose revenue is decreased by 15% when you compare March of 2020 to March of 2019, or whose revenue has decreased by 30% when you compare April of 2020 to April of 2019. So the first claiming period is March 15th to April 11th. The revenue test, however, is calculated on a calendar monthly basis. So the month of March 2020 will be compared to the month of March 2019 to figure out if the decline is big enough. For March, as I said, it has to be 15%. For April, it has to be 30% or more, as it does for May. So the example I've got, your March 2019 revenue was $75,000. Your revenue for March of 2020 is $50,000. That is a $25,000 decrease. If you divide $25,000 by $75,000, your revenue is down 33.33%, basically a third. So since it has declined by more than 15%, you would be eligible for the CEWS. So once you're eligible for the next two periods. So if you qualify for March, you're good for April and May as well. You apply for this subsidy through your My Business account with CRA. Once, again, as you've established the eligibility, then you have to keep going back to do the calculations, but you're already eligible. So the amount of the subsidy is the lesser of three things. The 75% of what you paid your employees before March 15th, so what their baseline remuneration was then, 100% of what you're currently paying your employees, and $847 per employee per week. There is no overall payroll or employer limit. So what's happened is a lot of employers have decided that if somebody was making $1,000 a week before March 15th, they're now making $750 a week, and they're going to be able to get all of that from the government, the employer is. So the three things you have to calculate is what did you pay people up until March 15th per week? What are you paying them now? And compare those numbers to the $847 per week that is a maximum. So the calculations that we've looked at, what you're going to get is, again, the lesser of 75% of what you used to pay them, 100% of what you pay them now, or the $847 maximum. And we do have another tip that's just on this, if you want to take a look at that one. What else? Employees, we have the CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. It's $2,000 per month. Pretty much anybody who cannot work, even if they don't qualify for EI. The application is done through your MyCRA account, which is your personal one, or by calling 1-800-959-2019. If you've already applied for EI, then there's nothing else to do. The CERB is going to replace EI for this 16-week period. If you are receiving employment income of more than $1,000 a month, you're not allowed to be on CERB. Previously, you weren't allowed to make any money if you're on CERB, but they changed the rules to be $1,000 a month recently. So fine print, you have to have earned $5,000 or more of employment income or self-employment income in 2019. And the self-employment income can include dividends, provided they are not eligible dividends. So basically, if you have paid yourself a dividend from your own corporation, then you're very likely entitled to CERB. The other things to talk about, business owners. There's the CEBA, the Canada Emergency Business Account. It is available from your own bank. It is $40,000 maximum. Your business will qualify if your 2019 payroll was between $20,000 and $1.5 million. So the deal is you borrow the $40,000. If you pay it all back by December 31st, 2022, then you're going to be allowed to keep $10,000 of that as a grant. You don't have to pay that back. There will be no interest charged until January 1st of 2023, at which time the interest will be 5% per annum. You must fully repay the loan by December 31st, 2025. So to apply for this, and some of the banks have it ready to go now, you have to go to your own bank. You have to have your 2019 T4 summary at hand, because the bank needs to know your total payroll that's in your box 14, as well as your business number, which you may or may not have already memorized. So if you get your T4 summary form in front of you, you'll be okay. Trust returns that were due March 30th are now due May 1st. Charity returns, no charity return is due before the end of December of 2020. The GST credit is increased by $290 per person. You don't need to apply. This will happen automatically. Child benefit has an additional one-time payment of $300 per child, which will be paid in May. No applications required for that. And for student loans, no payments of principal or interest need to be made between March 30th and September 30th on Canada student loans. Every day, they're making changes to these programs and deadlines and the interpretations that we're making of what the rules are. So it's best to check back. We have the links on our web site at peverill.ca.